Hello and welcome to our English news edition coming to you from Canal, Algérie. Let's start off with your headlines for today. A considerable decrease in corruption scandals since 2020, the post-popular protest movement or Hirak era. And 75% is the rate of digitization in the health sector, according to the sector minister during an assessment meeting devoted to this vital operation. The impoverishment policy adopted by the Makhzen regime is leading to more and more demonstrations across Morocco. And we discover by the end of our bulletin one of the oldest religious sites in Blida province, namely the Ben Sadoun Mosque. Good evening and welcome back. Corruption is no longer a commonplace in Algeria as it used to be before 2020. Scandals have considerably decreased, though they still exist, but not with a lesser level. Melissa Gubash reports.
Even if Algeria has not completely eradicated corruption, it remains infinitesimal. With an aim to protect the state executives, the President of the Republic took a series of decisions to decriminalize the errors of management. But on the other hand, no mitigation circumstances will be made for managers filling their pockets during the exercise of their functions, as it was the case for the former Minister of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, Nassim Diafet, who used and abused his functions and is now facing judicial sue. He's telling evidence of the end of impunity. The case of the former minister was a boon for those who wanted to spread fake news to show the national and international opinion that the new Algeria isn't as good as it seems. The other objective was to destabilize executives by creating a climate of fear and suspicion. Let everyone be reassured, there is no such thing as a list of executives under judicial control. Quite the opposite among thousands of executives, managers and business leaders in the country. Only a few dozen are behind bars for corruption. Executives, managers and business owners are free to actively contribute to transforming and developing Algeria.
In the parliamentary activity, the President of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, presided on an open session dedicated to the draft bill relating to human trafficking and the fight against it, and the draft bill pertaining to protection against drugs as well as their use and illegal trade. Still with the parliamentary activity, the National People's Assembly adopted 3 bills on Tuesday relating to the monetary and banking draft bill. The text aims at modernizing the banking system, strengthening its missions of regulation and control so as to allow it to be in line with the methods to implement them at the international level. The other 2 bills related to the rules of general accounting and financial management and the prevention and settlement of collective labor disputes and the right to organize strikes. The plenary session was chaired by the President of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali. The national oil and gas company Sonatrach announced 6 new discoveries in the hydrocarbon sector in the first quarter of 2023. 2 discoveries of oil and gas in the Amgid Masoud Basin and the drilling of 2 wells in the basin of Berkine allowed the discovery of oil and gas. Meanwhile, another discovery was made in the Ohanet area in the Elizi Basin. Finally, an oil and gas discovery was made in Wedmia, southeast of Hasirmel. It is important to note that these discoveries illustrate the relevance of the efforts made by Sonatrach in terms of exploration and renewal of the hydrocarbon reserves. Still in the energy sector, likely to witness a significant progress following the agreement signed between the Algerian oil and gas company Sonatrach and the Algerian Space Agency, which endow the national oil giant with highly acclaimed techniques and tools. Najah Tayyar reports.
From estimating gas emission system production to the exploitation of space geodesic techniques, the framework agreement was renewed between Sonatrach and the Algerian Space Agency, promising collaboration between the 2 sites for a more optimal use and implementation of space technologies in the field, an agreement signed for the first time in 2018 which has already borne fruit. Sonatrach has its own tools. However, the assessment of international entities differs from that of certain international bodies, which provided figures that we consider to be imaginary. We have a national assessment tool also recognized by major international scientific reviews. In addition to that, the Algerian Space Agency is to provide various applied space research services carried out by it on behalf of Sonatrach. In view of our previous experiences, this agreement, which we are proud to renew, will allow Sonatrach to modernize its industrial operations and make them more reliable in order to better exploit our hydrocarbon resources. To sum up the actions carried out by the Algerian Space Agency within the framework of this agreement, the agency provided high-definition satellite images of Sonatrach's industrial zone, particularly in the region of Hassi Mas'oud and Wergla. It has also established digital ground models of Hasirmel and Birsba. Also, the exploitation of geodesic technologies is dedicated to Sonatrach. This cooperation allows to strengthen national sovereignty through local support for Sonatrach in the analysis, management and protection of its business environment.
Always with good news, the health sector is digitized by 75%. The announcement was made by the sector minister during an assessment meeting. Ines Kalou was there and compiled this informative report.
The digitization of the health sector deemed as a pressing need, which has reached almost 75% of hospitals and health centers.
We have seen that this digitization has had very positive effects. It saves time, reduces costs, gives easy access to files and even more information to the paramedical service and all the staff in the hospital, which is a small part of the benefits that we are looking for and that we want to effectively achieve.
Digitization aims to provide optimal care for patients as it ensures continuous monitoring of external consultations, but also improves the quality of services.
Today, we are satisfied with this first step, but the best step that we are looking for is those that will allow us in the future to have an even more comfortable situation for the patient and also for the practitioner who moves from one hospital to another with favorable care conditions.
Et tous les deux ont peut-être la possibilité d'avoir des conditions favorables pour la prise en charge.
Digital technologies are defining contribution to medical practices, particularly in terms of data collection, medical archives, records, and timely treatment decisions making.
And the support of the Sahrawi cause is steadily being affirmed. A parliamentary commission of Timor-Leste affirmed on Tuesday its full support to the struggle of the Sahrawi people, and that during a reception organized in honor of the Sahrawi ambassador to Delhi. The two sides tackled on the occasion the latest developments of the Sahrawi cause and other issues of common interest. In a related topic, the Sahrawi National Commission for Human Rights welcomed the decision of the UN Working Group on arbitrary detention, which ruled in favor of the two activists, Sultana and Luwara Sidi Ibrahim Khaya. A historic decision, according to the Commission, which called on lawyers to join the work of the international legal team to protect the human rights defenders in Western Sahara. The inhabitants of numerous Moroccan cities, including Bni Mellal and Tétouan, took to the streets to denounce the Makhzen regime's policy and its blatant awareness towards their people's untold suffering. More details with Melissa Kapash.
The fight of Moroccans against the high cost of living and the social oppression continues. The inhabitants of nearly 60 municipalities of large cities, including Tétouan and Bni Mellal, took to the streets to voice their anger and refusal of their current situation and denounced the policy adopted by the Makhzen regime.
للاحتجاج ضد حكومة صامة الآذان
We are protesting against the government and its policy. Other demonstrations will be held due to the increase in the rate of unemployment and the high cost of living. A large number of citizens are out to denounce this irresponsible and corrupted government. We will continue our fight.
Determined to continue its fight despite the injustice and oppression perpetrated against it, the people are shouting loud and clear, expressing their anger against their neglected situation imposed by a regime unwilling to respond to the legitimate demands of its people.
The Makhzen is held responsible for the precariousness of the Moroccan people, who are decrying the monarch's increasing wealth and the constant impoverishment of citizens. Ines Kalou has a full story.
Ranked among the 5 richest monarchs in the world, with a personal fortune estimated at around $6 billion, while his country has been plunging for years in a deep social and economic crisis. His people, represented by all sectors, take to the streets on almost a daily basis. The rich king of the poor people is totally absent. He no longer leads and hardly speaks to his people anymore, and his government turns a deaf ear to the popular demands hammered out tirelessly. And this is not about to change. The 2023 budget for the king's expenditures has increased from the 15 million euros allocated to the king. 26 are destined for the so-called personal items, a position corresponding to the salary of the king and his family entourage. On the other hand, according to a study by the Moroccan High Commission for Planning, nearly 4 million of Moroccans have fallen into poverty between 2014 and 2022.
It is very difficult to calculate the balance sheet of a king during 23 years of hateful dictatorship, while Alawi's royal wealth is one of the richest in the world, 600 luxury cars, as for jewelries and watches, a real wealth that cannot be counted. It is a real barracks of Ali Baba.
The health crisis and inflation have contributed to a decline in the standards of living of Moroccans by about 8%, a situation that continues to deteriorate. As a direct result, more people are protesting to denounce a policy of a deliberate impoverishment. Even worse, the World Economic Forum Davos 2023 portrays and confirms that the Moroccan economy is threatened with collapse, even though the Makhzen has just been granted another loan, the International Monetary Fund.
Let's discover now one of the oldest religious sites in Blida province, namely Ben Sadoun Mosque, a favorite destination for worshippers during this month of Ramadan, yet it remains in need for renovation and more conservation to be classified as a national heritage. Let's travel to the City of Roses to know more with our reporter Najah Tayar.
Bearing the name of its founder, Ben Sadoun Mosque is one of the oldest mosques in Blida province. It is the very first mosque built in the region. Sheikh Ben Sadoun and his wife did not have children. One day, Ben Sadoun asked his wife to lend him her jewelry so that he would prepare for her a nice gift. She gave him her jewels and waited for the gift. Years passed before one day, while they were walking by this mosque, he said to her, "Here's your gift. It will last a good deed for you and Sadaqah Jariyah." This mosque with an ancient Islamic architecture is covering an area of 258 cubic meters. It can contain till 800 worshippers. It consists of 5 halls separated by 5 rows of columns surmounted by a dome that's identical to the Bni Hamad fortress and the Constantine Mosque. This mosque is built according to the Hamadid style that can be found in Bidaya and also in Constantine. It is the typical style used in Algeria. This mosque has a crucial role concerning culture, religion and education. This mosque is characterized by the Quran classes given through the year. We also have other activities in the religious celebrations, especially in this blessed month of Ramadan. We also have a rich program for the memorization and the recitation of the Holy Quran. Bin Saadun Mosque has benefited from several renovation operations using local material. This valuable religious building that is considered the most antique mosque in the province is yet waiting to be classified as a national and international heritage.
And with that, we wind up our today's news edition. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.